Do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek
The ongoing clash between the panelists of The View and their critics, particularly highlighted by the recent confrontation involving Bill Maher and Karoline Leavitt, underscores a growing divide in American discourse. The View, a daytime talk show known for its outspoken hosts, has long been a lightning rod for controversy, often accused of being out of touch with mainstream American values. Critics argue that the show's hosts, led by Whoopi Goldberg, perpetuate a narrative that alienates many viewers by embracing a hyper-progressive mindset that stifles dissent and fuels outrage. This tension came to a head when Bill Maher, a comedian and host of Real Time, dined with former President Donald Trump, an act that sent shockwaves through The View's panel and sparked a fiery response. The controversy began when Maher, known for his sharp wit and evolving centrist views, sat down with Trump, a figure The View has consistently vilified. For Whoopi Goldberg, this was not just a casual meal, but a betrayal of the show's unwritten code. On air, she refused to utter Trump's name, treating him as an untouchable figure whose mere association with Maher was a scandal. Her reaction was visceral, her outrage palpable, as she and her co-hosts launched into a full-scale character assassination of Maher. They painted him as a traitor for engaging with someone they had spent years demonizing, accusing him of abandoning progressive ideals by daring to share a table with Trump. This incident wasn't just about a dinner, it was a flashpoint in a broader cultural war over free speech, civility, and the boundaries of acceptable discourse. The View's response was predictable yet revealing. The panel's indignation reflected a deeper issue, their intolerance for dialogue with those they disagree with. Maher, once a darling of the left, has been gradually shifting toward a more centrist perspective, challenging the progressive orthodoxy that The View champions. This shift made him a target, as the hosts framed his dinner with Trump as a moral failing rather than an exercise in open conversation. Whoopi, in particular, seemed personally offended, her refusal to say Trump's name a performative gesture that underscored the panel's zero-tolerance stance. To them, engaging with Trump was not just a disagreement, but a violation of their ideological purity. Enter Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, who stepped into the fray with a boldness that matched Maher's. Leavitt, known for her unapologetic style, didn't hesitate to call out The View's hypocrisy. In a series of pointed remarks, she accused the show's hosts of contributing to a toxic culture of censorship and division. She argued that the woke ideology they espouse has infiltrated institutions like schools, media, and even healthcare, twisting empathy into a weapon for silencing dissent. Leavitt's critique was not just about The View, but about a broader cultural shift that prioritizes ideology over facts, narrative over truth. She highlighted how newsrooms craft stories to fit preconceived agendas, universities indoctrinate rather than educate, and public discourse has become a minefield of outrage and cancellation. Leavitt's comments struck a nerve because they echoed what many Americans feel, but are reluctant to say aloud. The View, with its glossy set and high-profile hosts, has long positioned itself as a voice for the people, yet its approach often feels elitist and disconnected. The show's unwavering support for figures like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, despite their public struggles, has drawn criticism for being more about loyalty than reason. Biden, for instance, was lauded by the panel as a savior of democracy, even as his public appearances raise questions about his coherence. Harris, similarly, was propped up as a beacon of progress, her rhetorical missteps glossed over with applause. To critics like Levitt, this isn't commentary, it's propaganda dressed up in the guise of empowerment. Bill Maher, for his part, didn't back down from the onslaught. On a recent episode of Real Time, he addressed the controversy head-on, using his signature blend of sarcasm and logic to dismantle The View's outrage. He mocked the idea that his dinner with Trump was some grand betrayal, pointing out that he's a comedian, not a diplomat negotiating a treaty. Maher emphasized that his goal was not to endorse Trump, but to engage in the kind of civil discourse that The View seems to reject. He called out Whoopi by name, highlighting her meltdown as emblematic of a broader problem, the refusal to tolerate differing viewpoints. In Maher's view, America is a place where adults should be able to sit down, talk, and disagree without it devolving into a personal attack. His response was a masterclass in standing firm without stooping to the level of his critics. Maher's defense wasn't just about protecting his own reputation, it was about defending a principle. He argued that free speech and open dialogue are under threat from a culture that equates disagreement with betrayal. By sitting down with Trump, Maher wasn't endorsing him, he was modeling the kind of conversation that's become increasingly rare in a polarized nation. His refusal to apologize or grovel in the face of The View's attacks earned him respect from those who value authenticity over conformity. In a media landscape where outrage often drowns out reason, Maher's willingness to lean into the controversy was a bold statement. He didn't just weather the storm, he turned it into a platform to expose the flaws in his critics' logic. Levitt's intervention amplified Maher's message. As White House press secretary, she brought an institutional weight to the debate, framing The View's behavior as part of a larger cultural malaise. She accused the show of perpetuating a cultural Marxism that divides people based on race, gender, and ideology, rather than fostering unity. Her critique was particularly pointed when she addressed the panel's double standards. The View's hosts, she argued, preach tolerance but practice exclusion, celebrating figures like Harris while demonizing anyone who engages with Trump. Levitt's ability to articulate this hypocrisy with clarity and poise made her a formidable ally for Maher, turning their combined pushback into a cultural moment. The View's response to Levitt was predictable but ineffective. Whoopi, in particular, doubled down, attempting to deflect by invoking Kamala Harris and framing Maher's actions as a betrayal of progressive values. Yet this only underscored Levitt's point. The panel's outrage was less about principle and more about partisanship. If Maher had dined with Harris, the reaction would have been celebratory, not condemnatory. This inconsistency exposed the show's bias, as Whoopi's rhetoric leaned heavily on emotion rather than reason. Her attempt to compare Trump to Harris was a rhetorical misstep, revealing the selective outrage that drives the panel's commentary. What made this confrontation significant was its broader implications. Maher and Levitt weren't just taking on The View. They were challenging a media culture that thrives on division. The show's format, loud debates, quick sound bites, and moral posturing has become a microcosm of how discourse is conducted in America today. By refusing to play by those rules, Maher and Levitt exposed the fragility of the outrage machine. Their responses, grounded in logic and unapologetic honesty, resonated with a public increasingly tired of being told what to think. This clash also highlighted a shift in the cultural tide. For years, The View and similar platforms have shaped narratives by amplifying certain voices while silencing others. But as more people question these narratives, the cracks in their authority are becoming visible. Maher's dinner with Trump wasn't just a personal choice, it was a symbolic act of defiance against a culture that demands conformity. Levitt's willingness to call out the show's hypocrisy further eroded its credibility, showing that even powerful media figures can be held accountable. The public's reaction to this saga has been telling. Social media buzzed with support for Maher and Levitt, with many praising their courage in standing up to The View's bullying tactics. The outrage from Whoopi and her co-hosts, meant to shame Maher, instead backfired, drawing attention to their own inconsistencies. For every viewer who nodded along with The View, countless others saw through the performance, recognizing it as the empty posturing it was. This moment wasn't just a win for Maher and Levitt. It was a signal that the old playbook of shame and cancellation is losing its power. As the dust settles, the question remains, where does this leave The View? The show's refusal to evolve, to dial back its rhetoric or engage in good faith dialogue risks further alienating its audience. Meanwhile, figures like Maher and Levitt are gaining traction by offering something different: authenticity, reason, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. Their clash with The View wasn't just a headline, it was a turning point, a reminder that real discourse requires courage, not conformity. For a public weary of the noise, that message is starting to resonate louder than ever.